Welcome to our next Tuesday video. I'm here with Curt, who has been editing these videos on Tuesday. We are on Wichita State's campus. It is close to the time when school is starting. So right now, campus is fairly empty. We're going to take a little walk around campus, and Curt's going to ask me some questions about Alaska. I might even ask him a couple questions, but Curt's going to ask me about Alaska. And if you're not familiar with the channel, I grew up in Ohio for 30 years, and then I moved to Kansas about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, so you can start figuring out how old I am. I went to Alaska. You've been seeing these videos. We've been releasing from Alaska. We got a couple more left coming up this week, so hopefully you'll enjoy those, but so far, so good. People have seemed to like them. Curt, what are the questions about Alaska?
Well, been fielding a lot of questions from the comments and just kind of a few of my own, but I think the biggest one was what surprised you the most about Alaska?
So probably one thing that was surprising was that there aren't that many roads. So there's a lot of back roads and all, but there's not that many paved main roads. So if you're going to like this part of Alaska or this part of Alaska, there's like one road to go to both of them. And so that was definitely probably the most surprising. You know, here you're just used to roads everywhere.
Right.
And so that was probably, and you know, they close a lot of the roads once it gets about October because of how bad the weather is. Yeah. So I can imagine the winter, what it would be like driving up there.
Oh my gosh.
When the roads are closed, you need a snowmobile or some sort of vehicle to get almost anywhere.
Well,
but yeah, that was interesting.
I saw some people were actually, during the time that you've gone, I mean, where it's less, you know, in terms of weather, less hazardous. Do people take bikes up there or motorcycles and stuff like that?
There are definitely a lot of motorcycles. I saw, at least when I was there, a lot of you know, international travelers for sure. But people coming over through Canada and then kind of making their own up to the Prudhoe Bay on motorcycles.
Yeah,
I would not do that. That would not be my deal. But a lot of people did seem to kind of like a bucket list thing to do on a motorcycle.
So how was your back after the Dalton Highway?
I got a massage in Fairbanks. I needed it. Thankfully, they had an inexpensive massage therapist in Fairbanks.
Oh, goodness. So
it's weird walking around campus because there's like people, but you know, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, as we're approaching Shucker Hall, the dining hall, I guess I got to ask you, what was the food like?
Oh, I am not a foodie, and so, but I did have reindeer. And it was very lean meat, kind of like if you think of a, you know, deer or something like that, if you've eaten like that. But I did have some halibut. That was really, really good. But I'm probably not a good person to ask about that. The food was expensive, for sure.
Yeah.
The locals that are from other places say that the pizza isn't good there because of the cheese they have to get somehow with the maybe weather. So sure. I did have pizza once and it was okay. I didn't think it was anything terrible, but the locals definitely say don't get the pizza if you're a big pizza fan.
Not a pizza place. All right. Yeah, I was looking at, you know, you're talking about some of the hotel rooms are like $200, you know, so a little bit of expensive vacation or exploration. How expensive was the trip?
So I probably did it way more expensive than you could do it. It was a total of 12 days up there.
Oh, wow.
Including my travel. So a couple of those days were traveling. And I also did like 3 trips within the trip. And one of those trips was a flight trip. I just posted the video about the smallest town in Alaska before this video. So that was an expensive trip actually as part of that whole deal. And so the whole thing cost about $6,000. And so yeah, watch this video and thumbs up and all that stuff. But I think you could do that trip for a couple $1,000s.
Okay.
You know, without the extra flights. I did a special rental vehicle to go to the Dalton Highway.
Yeah.
Those hotels were really expensive, and so you could probably get there and back for a couple $1,000s for a couple weeks.
Do you think you could do it with an RV? I mean, you think the RV would clear some of those roads? I mean, that way.
You'd have to go slow.
Yeah.
And you'd have to take some extra tires. So, because there's nowhere to really fix things. So you're going to have to be self-sufficient. So I saw a couple on there, but not very many. Most people were in some sort of SUV or a motorcycle. So not too many, RVs taking that trip. But there were a lot of RVs in Alaska. So you could kind of park your RV, maybe rent a vehicle, and then drive another vehicle up there.
Okay, that'd save some money, I guess.
Yeah.
Before you left, when you got there, you got some bear spray. Thank God you didn't have to use it. Did you see any interesting animals up there, though? I mean,
so I was really wanting to see a bear, believe it or not. And the longer I got there, we're getting ready to cross the street here, heading towards the track.
Here we go.
Our favorite place. But the way people talk about bears is kind of like a normal pet almost. Just the black bears are not that much to be worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And the grizzly bears are, but they don't see them very often. But I did not see any bears, unfortunately.
Okay.
I did see some caribou, a.k.a. reindeer. And that was in a Prudhoe Bay video, running along the road, jogging along the road. And then I saw some moose.
All right.
And then some deer. But that was about it. I little animals here and there. I did see some unique birds, but I'm not a bird watcher, so I don't know what they were. But there are a lot of different kind of birds, bald eagles, stuff like that up there. So it was pretty cool. Definitely, if you're slowing down, you'll probably see a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a lot of people you interviewed and that kind of talked to on the road. Were they nice? Were the people nice?
I felt like most everybody I came across were very nice. Most of the people when I was traveling were tourists from other countries, really. And so obviously they were all nice, as they were just like me, kind of trying to figure out where to go and what not to do. And but every person from Alaska is really nice. Everybody I met, like at an Airbnb or a local, I talked to a guy at a construction thing for a long time, and super nice guy, just real down to earth. The people that worked along the Prudhoe Bay Drive, everybody was super nice. I think they really were glad to see tourists. You just don't see that many people.
Yeah.
So tourism is a thing for sure. And even the people in the most, Kupreanof, which was the smallest town in Alaska, walking me into his house. And so, it's pretty awesome that's probably caps it off in terms of how nice the people of Alaska were when you watch that video.
Yeah, I noticed when you were talking to some of those workers there, kind of getting their daily grinds, like 12 hours work, 12 hours sleep. I mean,
that's all they do. It's pretty, I don't know if you call it boring existence, but it would be, it'd be kind of like going on a long run, where you have no music and you're just sitting there.
So mental.
If you're a runner, how much do you run?
Right now I'm
how many miles a week and how many days a week?
Well, I'm training for a marathon now, so the mileage is picking up, but I run 6 days a week and between 50 to 70 miles. I'll probably peak at 70 and then kind of work my way down. So 60 or 70 miles a week. Yes.
What a stud.
Yes.
I might run 6 or 7 miles a week. This is my workout right here. What we're doing today.
We're approaching about 2 miles right now, I think. Throw that in the old daily log. So, would you go back to Alaska again? I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, I was in one kind of corner of Alaska, call it the northeast corner, a little bit of the southeast one for that flight. I'd like to go back to Anchorage or go to Anchorage. I was in the airport. But yeah, go check that out. There's not much in the western part. When you look at a map, there's very few roads. So you got to fly places. Obviously, that's very interesting to me. I would love to go see what it's like way out there in the most barren parts of Alaska, even more than where I was at. So absolutely, it was beautiful. I'd definitely love to go back again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of beauty, I think I asked you this. Did you see the Northern Lights? But you probably weren't there at the right time, were you?
Correct. It was daylight almost all the time, and you can't really see the Northern Lights when it's daylight out. But Fairbanks is, should we cross here?
Yeah. Let's head toward the president's house.
So Fairbanks, they say, is the best place in the world to see the Northern Lights.
Mm-hmm.
It's over 100 days a year that you can see the Northern Lights in Fairbanks. So I was in the right place, just not the right time of the year. So, I would definitely like to do that. And maybe if I go back again, I would go back at a little bit later in the fall, and hopefully be able to do that. Check that one off the list.
Nice. In terms of because you're always out looking for small towns and just the production that goes into it. How different was it than like in the lower 48?
It felt like another country.
Yeah.
That they speak English. So it was, I guess it's like Canada, which makes sense because, geographically it is Canada. And it's like if you go to Hawaii, I'm sure it feels like an island out there, one of those islands. But that was the main. I'd say you could compare it to maybe like parts of Montana, western Montana, if you've ever been Glacier National Park, and it had that kind of a feel, but very, very different from the lower 48. It was certainly a unique experience. So Curt's been editing these videos on Tuesday. Curt, how did you get started doing this? I know a lot of people are curious about you. How did you get started editing videos?
Well, actually, it started on this very campus in 1991, back when there was no digital, no iPhones, and it was tape. And I took a TV production course, but there was only one edit room.
That was like 2010 or something?
Yeah,
you were on campus here?
No, it was 1991. So yeah, just getting time to get into this one edit booth, you had to sign up for it, and you'd have to wait hours. And so it's definitely a departure from when just pull out your phone and editing, on your phone.
Yeah, way easier for me nowadays.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
But that kind of propelled me into wanting to do more visual storytelling, and so I got an internship at a local television station, and just kind of got the bug. So right now it's 90-some degrees and humid. What was the temperature like in Alaska?
It was kind of all over the place. July in Alaska is actually really nice, and I would say between 30 and 70. But it was only like 30 when I decided to jump in the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah.
And that happened to be the coldest day around that time. And that's the day I jumped in there, and I'm still cold. It's warm today, but I'm still a little shivering. But it was like 50 to 70. I'd say I wore shorts half the time, and I wore jeans half the time. That's a good way to describe the temperature. And at night, wherever I slept, a lot of Airbnbs, never needed an air conditioner or a heater. So it was just kind of a comfortable, evening, kind of cool, but that would be a good way to sleep. And so July is a good time in terms of temperature if you want to go to Alaska. I don't know about beyond that. Once you get to September, October.
They were talking hypothermia, probably.
Yeah.
You look pretty cold walking back to that bus.
I was freezing. So that's last question.
Last question.
Any questions, put them in the comments for me or Curt. And we're almost done with the Alaska stuff. So the last video was the smallest town in Alaska. We've got a couple more coming up. Going to drive to almost Canada, and then we're going to have a video about the top of the world highway. It's kind of the last video of Alaska before we get back to the lower 48. So hopefully everybody's been hanging in there. I know it's a different kind of video on the channel, but thank you to everybody who's become members on Patreon and YouTube memberships. And if you're not a member, no big deal. Just appreciate you watching the videos. Continue to support the channel. It's continuing to be fun. We're basically at the 4-year mark of the channel right now, and so starting year 5, I guess. Kind of crazy to think about it. So thanks a lot. Everybody have a good rest of your summer, and we'll see you Tuesday, Thursday, or Sunday.
Stop here.
Yep.
My arms. Oh.
I could film if you need me to.
It's kind of like that. Yeah, the echo chamber.
Yeah, they probably can't hear it on there, but we just walked through this part where it's echoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.